The moment Kayla's jaws locked around Elise Moreau's, armed thousands of spectatorshid, thinking it was just part of the show. But within seconds, the water turned edrad, the screams replaced the applausiend, the illusion shattered. Elise Moreau wasn't just any trainer, she was a world-renowned marine expert, someone who spent her life building a bond with the ocean's most powerful predator, the killer whale. To the outside world she was confident, fearless, a symbol of harmony between human and wild. But beneath the glassy surface of blue submarine park's silent cracks had been forming warnings, ignored instincts under ice tent. On that summer afternoon, the predator she loved, trusted, and believed she understood turned on her with a pand. Wasn't an accident. It was a brutal reminder that the wild cannot be tamed for applause. Before we reveal the painful truth behind this tragedy, I want to hear your voice. Do you believe humans can ever control nature? Leave your thoughts in the comments. And if you can, the stories that expose what lies beneath the surface, like, share, and subscribe, because sometimes the show hides a deadly reality. Elise Moreau Hodlways belonged to the water. From the moment she first saw the vast endless blue, something inside her shifted. A quiet certainty that the ocean was where-ish was meant to be, as a child growing up along the rocky shores of Brittany. She spent hours watching the waves crash and fall, listening to the haunting calls of the creatures beneath. But Elise didn't just dream of the sea, she chased it with everything she had. By the age of 34, she had become one of the most respected marine animal trainers in the world. Her life was more than a career, it was a devotion. Day after day she poured her heart into understanding the language of the ocean's most formidable predators, killer whales. Their strength fascinated her, intelligence, their grace beneath surface. It captivated her completely. But there was one whale who held a place in Elise's heart no other could. Kayla. 19 feet of raw power, captured years ago off the coast of the Greenland Sea. Most Kayla was a star attraction, the gent, the thrilled crowds at Blue Sea Marine Park, but to Elise she was more than that. Their connection ran deeper than words, deeper than even the shimmering depths of the pool they shared. It was a bond built on trust, patience, and the belief that love could cross the divide between species. For years people marveled at them together, the fearless woman and Seane's apex predator. Moving as one, it seemed impossible, magical, even. But beneath the wonder, beneath the applausive ocean, whispered a warning Elise could never fully hear. A truth as old as the sea itself. Wild hearts are never truly tamed. To thousands who filled the stadium seats each week, Kayla was the perfect illusion of beauty and control. Her black and white body cut through the water like pottery. Her movements smooth, calculated as Maldrin Sea. Cheered parents, watched in weaned cameras, captured the flawless image of human and animal united in harmony. But appearances, like water, are easily distorted. Kayla was not born in captivity. She came from the wild, frothed, icy, unforgiving waves of the Greenland Sea. Her first breaths were taken under storm-grey skies. Her first listens shaped by the ruthless rhythm of the ocean. She had been free, once a creature built for the vast unknown. Noth sterile boundaries of a concreting. For years, Kayla performed at Blue Kayla's wild origins and early warning signs. Marine Park, her size and power, the centerpiece of every show. The trainers knew her routines by heart. The jumps, thespins, the dramatic lifts that made a crowds erupt in applause. But behind closed doors, some whispered of moments that didn't fit the script. Flickers of defiance, hesitations, more warnings. Disguised as stubbornness, there were days when Kayla ignored commands floating just beyond reach, her dark eyes watching but unreadable. Sometimes she snapped her jaws in the water, a sharp, hollow sound that echoed like A warning shot trainers, called it Mud Swings Management, dismissed it. Asks, unpredictability of working with wild animals. But Elise knew better. She spent countless hours beside Cala studying every glance, every twitch of my school, every subtle shift. Beneath this surface, she believed their bond made her different. The trust could conquer instinct, yet deep inside a quiet uncertainty remained. Wild hearts, no matter how loved, carry storms no human can predict. In the world of captivigence, danger rarely screams, it whispers, creeps in through small cracks, hidden behind polished smiles and careful, rehearsed performances. The audience never sees the tension their trainers do. Elise had spent years reading Kayla's every movement, convinced that understanding was enough to prevent disaster. Even the most experienced hands can overlook the quiet tremors beneath their surface, and with Kayla those tremors were becoming harder to ignore. There were moments, the ones that never Medethi highlight reels, times when Kayla would hover at the far end of the pool facing to engage, times when the glint in her eyes darkened, when her massive body cut through the water with Tragischen. Elise couldn't quite explain more defiant acts, a delayed response, a slap of her tail, the unmistakable snape-off. Her jaws echoed louder than words. Fortos, who understood the language of hails, the other trainers noticed, to whispers spread backstage, cautious glances exchanged during debriefings, but in a place driven by ticket sales, illusion concerns were buried beneath the weight of tradition and corporate image. The show had to go on. Elise silenced her doubts, telling herself that love, patience, and years of dedication were stronger than instinct. She wanted to believe their connection was unshakable, that Kayla trusted Hearthway, she trusted Kayla. But beneath that fragile hope, the truth loomed liketh. Deep wild creatures don't forget who they are, and sometimes even the deepest bonds snap without warning. It was supposed to be just another show. The sun hung high over Blue Sea Marine Park, casting sharp reflections across their surface of the main pool. The air buzzed with excitement as families filled the grandstands, their eyes wide with anticipation. They came for the spectacle, impossible dance between human and predator, and no one performed that dance better than Elise Moreau and Carla backstage. Elise stood alone for a moment. The faint hum of the crowd behind Hearth, rhythmic splash of water beyond Thegets. She ran her fingers along the edge, her weight suit, steadying her breaths. She had done this routine countless times, every movement, every signal, etched into muscle memory. Yet beneath the confidence, there was an unease, shackled and shake. Today's performance included their most iconic trick, armament, where Kayla would lift Elise high above the water. A display of strength and trust fused together. It was the light of every show. The image that made headlines, the memory that lingered in every visitor's mind. At precisely 2:30 p.m., the gates opened. A roar of applause swept through the arena, as behind the scenes, ignored risks and growing tension, Elise stepped onto the stage. The water shimmered calm and perfecting every storm. Beneath Kala's massive shadow glided beneath surface, powerful, composed. But as Elise raised her hand, the familiar signal, the call to connection, Kala didn't respond as she always had. She hesitated, her dark eyes fixed on Elise. Reader breath seconds stretched thin. The crowd remained oblivious, but in Elise's chest a quiet dread settled, cold and undeniable. Summit was different. Something was coming. The first sign was so subtle, it almost slipped past unnoticed. Kayla broke the surface with her usual grace, but there was a hesitation, a fraction of A second where her massive Ephraim hovered beneath the waterline, her eyes locked onto. Elise, with an intensity thought, felt unfamiliar. Elise forced herself to smile, lifting her hand once more, signaling the start-off. Their most iconic routine, the crowd cheered, oblivious to the quiet storm building beneath the glassy surface. Parents clapped, children squealed with doe-like cameras, clicked, capturing what they believed to be just an lost performance. But Elise's heart pounded different. Like 8 years of experience, whispered warnings, the kind only those closest to these animals could feel. And yet, love has a way of dulling fear. Kayla approached slowly, her dorsal fin slicing through the pool like a shadow. Elise prepared to step onto her the way they had rehearsed countless times before, but instead of lifting her gently into theater, Kayla shifted her weight, brushing against Elise with an unexpected nudge, playful to the untrained eye. But beneath surface, Elise knew better. Her pulse quickened. She tried to regain control, adjusting her stance, signaling again with steady hands, but Kayla didn't obey. The next moment came fast, far faster than anyone could react. Kayla's jaw snapped open, powerful teeth closing round Elise's arm with terrifying force. A gasp rippled through the audience, but applause quickly followed. Mistaken for part of the spectacle, only those closest to the water saw the truth. The way Elise's body tensed, the sharp flash oftening in her eyes. The pain was immediate, orating from her shoulder down to her fingertips. As Kayla's grip tightened, Elise struggled, pulling against the impossible strength of the predator she thought she knew so well. Water churned violently around them, froth and foam masking the terror unfolding beneath the surface. The crowd fell silent. Confusion swept the stands. What had begun as artful choreography is unraveling into something darker. Elise tried to shout, but water filled her mouth as Kayla yanked her under. Fueled above faded the sunlit arena. Deficits, watching the illusion of control, everything dissolved into cold, suffocating silence. Her mind raced, memories flashing like lightning. Their years of trust, the quiet moments beside Kayla, the unshakable bond she believed would never break. But now, in the depth of the pool, surrounded by raw, untamed power, Elise understood the truth. Kayla was not a partner, she was not a performer. She was a force of nature, unpredictable, intently style, fought with everything left in her. But Kayla's grip was merciless. Each second dragged her deeper, her lungs burning, limbs thrashing against the overwhelming weight of the ocean's greatest predator. And above them, their crowd finally realized this wasn't a show anymore, it was a nightmare. Their excitement collapsed into chaos. Screams echoed through the arena as Elise's body surfaced for a fleeting moment, her face pale, her eyes wide with terror. Water streamed down her cheeks, mixing with blood that bloomed faintly across the rippling surface. Her lips parted, desperate for air, but there wasn't enough time. Kayla's jaws clamped down again, this time with ruthless, deliberate force, and dragged her beneath the water. The surface stilled for a heartbeat, as if pool itself was holding its breath. But beneath that deceptive calm, the truth was unfolding, a brutal, unstoppable struggle between a woman and the wild. Elise thrashed in Kayla's grip, muscles burning, lungs screaming for oxygen. Her entire world shrank to the crushing pressure of teeth against flesh, the freezing pull of water closing in around her. The devastating realization that no amount of love, training, or trust could the fatal show when trust turned to tragic root. Nature's rules above them, panic crippled through the stands, guests pointed wildly, their faces shifting from confusion to horror. Some clutched their children, others pressed phones to their ears, calling for help. The music, once a joyful soundtrack to the spectacle, had stopped. All that remained was the sound of sirens, frantic footsteps, and the gasps of those watching helplessly. Staff members sprinted toward the edge, the pool tossing nets, waving flags, shouting Kayla's name with false confidence, but it was too late. The predator's focus had narrowed to a single target. For the briefest moment Elise's head broke the surface again, her eyes glassy, her body trembling from exhaustion and pain. She reached for the platform, fingers grazing empty air, as Kayla surged upward, pulling her back under with terrifying strength each time Elise resurfaced. The crowd saw less oft, vibrant, fearless trainer. They adored her. Strength waned, her movements slow, with fire in her expression dimming with every second spent in Kayla's relentless hold. It was no longer a question of control. It was survival, and Elise was losing her lungs, begged for air, her mind whirled with disbelief. How had it committed this? The connection she once believed umbilical had fractured, completely replaced by raw, ancient instinct thickened that no amount of training could have tamed. Beneath the surface, Kayla's body moved with practiced ease, dragging Elise through the water as if she were weightless. To Kayla, this wasn't violence. It was nature, pure and simple. The cheer had faded, the illusion had shattered, and the water, once a stage of wonder, had come a graveyard of broken trust. As Elise disappeared below the surface, for the final time, the truth lingered like a bitter current in the air. Wild hearts were never meant to be caged, and when the cage breaks, there's no mercy. At 2:55 p.m., Elise Moreau's lifeless body was pulled from the water. The arena, once filled with applause and laughter, now stood frozen in disbelief. Her soaked wetsuit clung to her skin, her dark hair tangled across her face, eyes closetto. A world that had betrayed her trust. The paramedics worked desperately, compress oxygen, the rhythmic attempt to revive what had already slipped away, but their efforts collided with an unforgiving truth. There was no life left to save around them. The audience stood motionless, their faces pale, their voices caught somewhere between shock and sorrow. Some turned away, unable to bear the brutal contrast between the woman they had admired months before and the haunting stillness that now replaced her. Kayla drifted in the water, her massive body circling slowly, her dark eyes blank and red. Both predator and the partner, the link between them, had vanished. In its place, the raw consequence of captivement. An official report would later. The inevitably Elise died from blunt force trauma and drowning. The powerful jaws that once lifted her in graceful choreography had instead crushed bone and flesh. Every attempt to save her, every shouted command, every thrown net, it had all come too late. But what happened that day was not an isolated tragedy. The days that follow it unraveled everything. Investigations, reviews of ignored warnings or scored buried concerns, dismissed quiet conversations behind closed doors, unpredictable behavior, aftermath, public outrage, and the unforgiving truth. Trainers had whispered of near misses, of subtle signs that were too easily explained away in the pursuit of affectionless. Death wasn't an accident, it was the breaking point of a system that prized entertainment over understanding. Outside Blue Sea Marine Park, grief turned. Two outraged protesters gathered at gates, holding signs, chanting for change. The public demanded answers. How many more lives, human and animal, would be lost before the cages opened for good within? The walls of the park, the pool where Elise once performed, remained eerily still. And Kayla, the creature caught between two worlds, continued to drift, endlessly free in body imprisoned in existence. Elise Moreau's story became more than a tragedy. It was a warning, a painful reminder that nature cannot be reshaped for applause. It demands respect, or it takes it. Before we end this story, I want to hear your voice. If this tragedy moved you, if it made you question the world behind the glass walls, please like this video, share it with others, and leave your thoughts in the comments below. Your voice matters. And if you want to hear more real stories that reveal what lies beneath the surface, don't forget to subscribe like every share and every comment. These stories reach those who need to hear them. Now the truth remains. Elise Moreau believed love could bridge the divide between human and wild. She trusted in the bond she built with Kayla, the same bond that for years made people believe in harmony between 12 worlds. But in the end, the ocean reminded us of an ancient lesson. Wild hearts weren't ever designed to be caged. Her death wasn't just the price of one mistake, it was the consequence of years of silencing warnings, of believing we called our right natures, rules with concrete sense and choreographed tricks. Carla continues to swim trapped in an existence she never chose. And somewhere beyond the glass walls of Blue Sea Marine Park, the sea she once called home stretches wide and untamed, a place no human can ever truly control. Elise's story cannot be changed, but maybe by listening, by questioning, we can change what comes next. How many more lives must ebb lost before we finally understand the ocean belongs to the wild, and sometimes when we forget, it reminds us violently.